Hello, good day and good evening to everyone joining us today. Welcome to the newest episode of Alpha Live. My name is Francisco Juarez. I go by Cisco, and I am the Alpha Chicago chapter president. And as for my day job, I'm the compliance advisory manager for CIBC Bank USA, where I lead a team of advisors in providing regulatory advice to the various lines of business throughout the bank. So a lot of problem solving to make sure that the bank is operating within regulatory parameters. And again, president of the Chicago chapter, where we're doing a lot of great work, and happy to be here with you all. I'm honored to be your host and looking forward to the conversation that we have today. So thank you to all the Alpha team and the members for joining us today in this very important conversation about advocating for yourself and what you believe in. In just a moment, I'm going to introduce our special guest, Angela Arboleda. But first, I kind of want to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what the format's going to be like. We're going to start off with a few questions, little icebreaker questions. That way we can get a little bit of a background as to who Angela is, get a little bit more personal connection. And we'll go from there and get into some of the questions that we have that we'll talk on the subject of advocating. And later on, we'll go and have some more questions from the audience. So we'll be asking you all to please submit some questions that we can have there in the chat, so that you have an opportunity to ask Angela and get some of those questions answered, get some details from there. And finally, just going to encourage you to encourage Altria's career webpage to take a look at what type of opportunities they have at that organization, as well as learn more about Altria in general. Now, before we start, I do want you all to enjoy this brief video about Altria's vision for the future.
Altria is moving in a new direction. From our legacy to leading the way forward. Moving from smoking to potentially less harmful choices. And from being known as a tobacco company to being recognized as a tobacco harm reduction company. Moving beyond smoking. Altria.
Awesome. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our special guest, Angela Arboleda. Welcome back. So Angela Arboleda serves as Senior Director, Federal Government Affairs for Altria Client Services, which provides professional services and support to Altria Group and its operating companies. As part of the federal team, Angela is responsible for all the federal legislative and regulatory activity affecting Altria Group and its operating companies, Philip Morris, USA, John Middleton, Nat Sherman, etc. The range of issues that Angela manages includes corporate and excise tax, employee benefits, and tobacco product legislation and regulation. She brings more than 17 years of experience in government affairs, external affairs, and political strategy. Prior to her current position, Angela was president and CEO of Innovar Strategies LLC, a socially responsible consulting firm. Angela has also served as the vice president of federal government and external affairs at Herbalife Nutrition, where she managed the multi-pronged crisis management campaign. Angela also served as a senior advisor for the then Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid. Prior to her work on Capitol Hill, Angela worked for civil rights organizations, including Unidos Us and the National Organization for Women, where she worked on equality and criminal justice issues affecting diverse communities. Angela serves in the advisory board of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute and as a treasurer of the Hispanic Lobbyists Association. From 2017 to 2019, she served on the board of directors of the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute. Angela received her BA in International Affairs from George Washington University. I'm very excited to learn more about advocacy from Angela. Angela, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Cisco. And thank you to Alpha and also our talent acquisition folks at Altria for thinking about me and giving me this chance to tell you a little bit about me and how to be an advocate, at least how I am an advocate to myself and for the company that I work for.
Thank you, Angela. And so one of the things that we're definitely going to get into is all this advocating, this topic. It's a very important topic. But before we get into that, I always like to, ask some icebreaker questions to kind of get that connection, right? That human connection, especially since we're on digital, right? So before we started, when we were on the call prior to getting on and going live, you said that you were going to have your son take your dog away to get away. Tell me about your dog, because I love dogs, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people here loves dogs. And if you don't talk about your dog, your dog is going to be upset. So tell us about your dog.
So her name is Lola. She is a Pyrenees, which means that she's very, very stubborn, and she is a guard dog. So even though she's youngish, she's about a year and a half, she is a fierce guard dog, and she has a very loud bark. And I have hardwood floors throughout my house. So the echo that this creates when this dog barks is unbearable. So Lola is great, but she's very loud. So my son is taking care of her right now.
So I'm assuming you've had a lot of moments during this virtual time of the pandemic of Lola coming in and asking for something quite loudly, huh?
Yes, barking. She makes sure that I know when the UPS guy comes, when the mail person comes, when, anyone, if anybody's walking by the house, alert, alert, alert. So yeah, it's never a dull moment in my house.
Well, that's wonderful. Only one dog, no other pets?
We do have a rabbit. Her name is Della. And she is so cute, and she does not bark, which was one of the requisites to having another pet, a non-noise-making pet. So Della is a little angel.
It's funny that you didn't say pancakes, because I swear everyone that has a rabbit, for some reason, they're called pancakes. At least in my experience.
She could be a pancake, but she came with the name, and it stuck.
Just stayed with it. Okay, all right, great. Well, you know what? I think we got some great little background there, because I know there's a lot of pet lovers here. I was just talking about it with a coworker of mine earlier, how she would love to just be able to rescue all the pets and play with them all day long and just love them. So hopefully we've made some connections with Lola and the story there of her interrupting occasional meetings, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay, well, I want to go ahead and just get into it. This advocating topic. But before we kind of get in there, I want to get a little bit more into your career path. Can you share with us in your current role, like what attracted you to your current role at Altria?
Well, so I live in Washington, D.C. I am in the field of government affairs, and I'm specifically a lobbyist. I'm a Democratic lobbyist, which means that I lobby the Democratic side of the aisle. And so when I was looking for a job change, I was looking at different companies, and I wanted to go to a place that really understood government affairs and that took government affairs seriously. And so I was looking, and there's a couple of really good big organizations that care about government affairs, but Altria was one of those. And I looked into how they did their work, the consultants they have, the research capability that they have, the communications expertise, and the activation. And I thought, wow, if they really understand that you need all of these different pieces to make sure that you have a very robust and well-oiled machine in government affairs, I want to be a part of that. I came from a smaller company, and so this was a challenge because it was driving a Cadillac. After being in a little, kind of like tin car, I was going to be driving like an amazing car, and so I wanted that experience. And then when I started digging deeper into the company, I found out about their 10-year vision. I found out about tobacco harm reduction, and that really resonated personally. I used to be a smoker. I started smoking when I was very young. I am an immigrant, and so we tend to smoke earlier in Latin America. And my mother was a smoker. My grandmother was a smoker and died of emphysema, which was very tragic. And so learning about what the company is doing to make sure that people that are that want to quit have options and alternatives really tug at my heartstrings, and I could relate, right? And then understanding as a Latina that having these products available and accessible to the Latino community became something that I really wanted to be a part of. And so it was kind of like a perfect marriage, a very well-oiled machine with a great purpose, and that resonated with me personally. So here I am.
Well, that's great. Usually it's always, I think it's so important to have that personal connection to whatever it is that you're doing, right? And so it's great that you were able to make those connections, whereas other people might not want to throw themselves into that, right? It's like it might be controversial, or they just are put off by it. But it's great that you saw the opportunity of that you can provide and impact you could make within the organization. And like you're saying, as far as the government and the regulatory affairs space, that's great.
Well, and I can tell you that as a lobbyist, you have to, at least the way I do my lobbying work is I have to understand and care and believe in what I'm doing and what I'm saying, right? So when I go to Capitol Hill and I tell senators and congresspeople, this is what the company is doing, this is what we stand for, it has to be real. It has to come across as legitimate. And so for me, if there wasn't that personal connection, that personal investment on my side, I couldn't do the job. I know some people can do it, but for me, I have to believe in what I advocate. And so, it was a perfect match.
Tell us a little bit about you. You had mentioned something about challenges. And so I'd love for you to kind of expand a little bit on the challenges that you had, overall in life, getting to where you're at. And then maybe the second part, the challenges that you've had at the organization.
Well, how much time do you have, right? So
all night, no.
I think the greatest challenge or barrier that I've had in my life is being an immigrant and coming to this country as a young woman, coming to school here. I studied, I went to college here. And then very quickly after my 4-year career or college tour, I discovered that, I needed to find a visa, a way to stay here. And so very quickly, I learned that the immigration system is very complicated, very hard to navigate, and it's broken in so many different respects. And so to make the very long story short, I can tell you that it took me about 20 years to become a citizen. And it was during those 20 years that things were kind of tough, because when you're an immigrant, you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know what your next job is going to be. You don't know, whether you should settle down or not, whether you should form a family or not, whether you should buy a car or not, because you don't know if things are going to disappear, be taken away from you. And so that moment, those 20 years were very uncertain years for me. And I think that a lot of people in our community can totally relate. And so when I became a citizen, I was able to exhale and start, really flourishing, So that's one of the biggest challenges. But I think that being an immigrant and having that uncertainty has really formed who I am. And so it has given me the drive to be who I am. It has given me the convictions to try hard and harder, not to give up. And so I am grateful for even those hard years. And now, here I am. And so it's all good.
You've made it.
I've made it. Yes.
That's awesome. That's a wonderful story to hear. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of folks on the call that have experienced it or know someone has experienced it. What would you say? Well, here it is. Did you have anyone advocating for you back then, as you started off in, going to school here in the U.S., at your first few jobs? Like, was there someone that was advocating for you, or did you just kind of do it on your own and advocate it for yourself?
Well, I had the support of my parents. They believed in me. They didn't really understand everything that I had to do with the immigration and the, paying the lawyer and waiting and having to leave the country every year and coming back and all that craziness. They didn't understand why it was so hard and so laborious, and why, if we're paying a lawyer, why do I still have to go through all of these hoops? And anyway, but they believed in me. And so that was important. And then after, while I was going through that process, I landed this job doing advocacy work for the Latino community at Unidos US, which is the nation's largest Latino civil rights organization, based out of DC, but they have affiliates all over. There's some in Chicago. There's affiliates all over. There's about 300 of them. And they're community service providers. Anyway, so it was there where I basically found my second familia. I found peers of mine, my amigas. I call them my brujas, and we became really, really good friends. And one of them in particular has been in my life for this past 20 years. And so she has seen me grow and struggle and develop and succeed and kick butt. And so she's been my cheerleader. And every time I'm down or I am uncertain or I'm doubtful, I can always count on her. Also, my wife, I've been with my wife for, it's going to be 20 years this August. And she's been around, for all of this. And so it is those people that ground me, that say, even when I'm down, even when I'm sad, even when I think I can't do it, I'm not going to be able to make it, that they remind me, you've done it. Remember when, fill in the blank. Remember when it was impossible and you did it? And so that's been really powerful. And at Altria, even though I'm relatively new, I've only been here for about a year and a half, I have found two advocates. I don't like to call them mentors because it's only been a year and a half, but I like to call them my advocates, my cheerleaders. One of them, they're both men. One of them is my biggest fan. He understands that I have a different view in life and understands the value that I bring to the company, and gives me pretty much a very long leash to execute my vision. And I've been very lucky, and I've been able to deliver it. So, thanks for believing in me. And then the other guy, I think he sees himself in me. He sees someone who's very passionate and driven, and so he wants me to stay honest to myself and to my belief system, but at the same time not to get discouraged or tired when things are not going as fast as I want them to be. Lobbying is a very fast business. Is something that it changes by the moment, and so the nature of it is pretty fast, and so I want things to happen at a much faster clip. And so this other advocate of mine, he says, just pace yourself, stay focused, and so I've been very lucky because these two people have shown me the way, have loaned me their ear, and I think I'm gonna keep them for a while longer, as long as they want to keep me as part of my cheerleader.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great to have that support system, whether it's your family or advocates at work, whether you call them mentors or coaches or whatever it may be. Having that relationship is key. What with all the experience that you've gone through, and having these advocates currently at Altria, if you were able to go back in time and tell Angela 20 years ago, this is what you need to do this, or this is what you should really focus on. Hindsight's 2020, right? What kind of advice would you give young Angela?
Yeah. So I would say that I would remind my young self that things happen for a reason. And so even though in that moment they may make no sense, you may be like, what in the world is happening? I don't get it. Why am I struggling? Or why is this so hard? Or why is this taking me so long? Or why am I having problems with this other coworker? The nugget is things happen for a reason. And even though you don't understand why it is that they're happening, they will make sense later on. And having that challenging interaction with that coworker, or having that project fail, or whatever it may have been, if you're smart enough, it will make sense later on. You will connect the dots, and it will make you a stronger career person and a stronger human being. The other thing I would say is to my young self, it would be to chill, just enjoy life, be young, be crazy, be youthful, be, loca, because I was very serious when I was young, and I was I've always been fun and animated and passionate, but I was very driven and very serious about what's going to come next. I shouldn't waste my time. I need to do this. I need to do this other internship. I need to work. I need to, and so I feel, to be honest, that I missed out on some fun. And, now 30 years later, it's a little late because I have kids, I have responsibilities, So I would tell myself, just chill a little bit. Things are going to work out.
No, that's great. Like I kind of follow that same mentality nowadays, right? Like when we're younger, we are stressed about our career and profession, and we do get very serious because it's like we got to be serious, but yes, it takes away from who we are sometimes, right? It kind of like it quiets us, it quiets our spirit, and it quiets our natural creativity that would come out if we just trust the process and let it happen, and everything happens for a reason. So no, I think that's great, and I think that's a great advice for anyone to just trust it, let it happen. It's for a reason. You're going to understand it later. Obviously, right now it's painful.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, why am I having all these struggles? Well, it'll make sense later, and it's terrible to hear that, right, when you're young. But as you get older, you can definitely reflect and be like, yeah, it makes sense now. All of those struggles has led me up to this point. And we have to accept it, right? Like we have to accept that we're going to have those struggles. And so
the sooner we
accept it, the better off we're going to be. No, that's great. So you had mentioned something earlier with the advocates that you have at work. I assume that they give you a lot of feedback into what you should be doing, not only in your actual job, but like career wise. Is that something that you get often? Do you also give that feedback to others? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there is a very serious structural program at Altria, which is part of our talent acquisition department. And I am not in the talent acquisition department, so I cannot say everything that they do, but there are some very purposeful programs that connect Latinos, APIs, Asian Americans, African Americans, women, young people, older adults, adults with disabilities, with other people alike, so that they can see themselves and forge a future and a career in the company. There is also great opportunities in the company to grow and see, what this department does, what that department does, and basically have a breadth of knowledge within the company without having to leave the company for a new opportunity. But specifically for me, I am, 20 years, 17 years within my career. So I'm pretty seasoned already. But what has worked for me and what has been very helpful is to have these two advocates, where I can talk to them, where I can bounce ideas. One of them, I love to bounce ideas off of him. He's very smart. We think very differently, but when we get talking, it's like we make magic. I say this and then he says that, and then I say to him, listen, I'm going to say something and this is just for us, but what if, and I tell him, and I can think big with him, and he's never going to be like, oh, that's crazy. I don't like naysayers, and I think he gets it. He's like, let her think out loud, and he gives me feedback, and he also gets his juices flowing, and we make really good stuff happen, because I'm able to bounce ideas off of other people. And so, and then the other guy is more of a, pace yourself. You have a brilliant future. There is room for you. And he keeps telling me, he's like, we're growing the Latino pipeline here at Altria. You are part of the pipeline. I want to encourage you to stay, and I want you to encourage you to be here. And one of the things that I do personally is, and this is natural for me, is I talk to a lot of people, right? I talk to a lot of young people, interns, people that are doing, switching from one department to another. And I don't know how they get to me, but they get to me and they're like, hey, do you want to do a coffee? And, we do virtual coffees because, we can't do coffees. And, I take, an hour and I talk to them and I let them ask any questions and bounce ideas off each other. And I'm honest and candid. I talked to this one very smart intern, and he's Asian American, and he's into the sciences, into tech, and I'm not. But he said, but I'm so interested in politics, and should I switch? And I said, you need to be an expert on something, and then at the same time develop your passion and your knowledge on politics, because I think that down the line, marrying those two things is going to be win-win for him. And so I do my part also in advocating and being a resource for other people.
I think one thing that I kind of caught from your two advocates at work, I feel like there's a balance there. One of them has this, more creative, wild, let's get all these ideas out. And the other one's a little bit more methodical almost. And so that's a nice balance. I'm curious, how did you meet them? How did you meet these gentlemen? And what's your advice to everyone on how to make that connection, how to build that relationship?
Well, it's a little bit serendipitous is not the right word. The opposite of serendipitous, because we work in the same department, and so we interact a lot, right? And so it's just a matter of just how you vibe with people, right? And it's like, I have a connection with these two guys, and they're nice and knowledgeable, and I really like who they are. and what they've done with their careers. And so I'm like, I see some stuff in both of them, and in each of them individually, that I would like to emulate, which is really what a mentor and an advocate is. It's like, oh, I see in him this nugget that I would like to improve, and on the other guy, I see this other nugget that I would like to improve. And so, and I'm sure that they see something in me that they're working on for themselves. Because they're not just being super nice just because they're being super nice. No, they're also getting something out of it, the energy, they're fulfilling, a desire to help a Latina,
It
whatever
feeds off
it
of each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think what happened in your case, it happened organically, even though it was, you're working with each other, right? Like it just happened organically. Like you said, you meet someone, you happen to work with them, and it just naturally occurs. I think I was on a call not too long ago where they were talking about mentor programs, and there was one person that's like, I don't like mentor programs. I think mentor programs are too prescriptive, and it doesn't allow people to just naturally connect. Pros and cons, right? But
Right.
It's just a different perspective that I don't normally hear, but I also can appreciate it. And I think that's something that's evident with your circumstance, where you weren't necessarily seeking somebody. It just you just vibe, right? That energy, the creative, and creativity feeds off of other creativity. And so I think it's great. And for the folks attending, I think that's one of the numerous approaches in finding an advocate or a mentor or a coach, is just let it be organic and natural, and just trust the process. Things happen for a reason, right? I mean,
Exactly.
Those are your words, Angela.
and also, I feel like once you get a little bit older in your career, you need to understand that it could be a symbiotic relationship. So I'll give you an example. So I belong to this association called the Hispanic Lobbyist Association, and we have a mentorship program. And so I was mentoring this one guy. He worked on the Hill, and he was great, smart, everything. And so at that time, I did not have an Instagram account or a Twitter account. And so I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't know how to set it up. I'm old school, and so I said to him, I said, Lencho, why don't you help me set it up? And he's like, oh my God, that's so easy, blah, blah, blah. That's crazy. I said, no, I'm serious. I'll connect you to this and this person for your career. I'll introduce you. This is what we do in Washington. I send an email introducing, connecting people and putting them together. I said, but I need you to help me with my Twitter account and my Instagram account. And he's like, are you serious? I said, yeah, that's serious. And so it is because of Lencho, who took 15 minutes at a coffee shop, that I have Insta and that I have Twitter, because of him, And so I feel like, I don't know, it made us closer. It made me be like, I also need him. And, whenever he goes to a different job or he's looking for opportunities, we have that confianza, that I can help him as well, and he can help me as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I saw on the comments over here, I saw someone say café con leche, and I'm like, that's such a great way to connect with people, right? And we were talking about this yesterday, remember, about food, like having conversations over food. Like, I wish our call was during lunch so we could just eat and enjoy our food, or café con leche, and just let the ideas come out. I know there's another question out here on the comments that I do want to address, and it's something that's pretty important. I think someone here, Gabriela, mentioned that organic mentorship relationships often occur easier at the higher level. And what advice would you have for junior and mid-level professionals seeking those mentors?
So it's a balance, right? I think that the first two examples of mentors or cheerleaders or advocates that I gave you were my best friend and my wife, right? Those are peers. And so you don't when I think of an advocate or a mentor, I think I go back to what I just said, which is what qualities in that person do I want to emulate? And so they don't have to be the CEO of the company. They don't have to be the VP of the company. It could be your tia, it could be your abuelita, it could be, whomever, that there is something that you're lacking that that person has, and that you think that would complete you, that could make you a better human, or that could make you a better professional. However, if you want a mentor in your career that is more formal, I would see who the person was and how you're relating to the person. Do you have similarities? I am not a fan of trying to put a square peg on a circle. That doesn't work. It's tedious. Like, nobody wants to really do it. It's like, oh, here she comes again, and we're gonna have another conversation, and like, oh, and it's like, when is this gonna be over? When is this gonna be over? So, like, I feel like it has to be organic. And so what my advice is look up to maybe one or two rungs above of you and see how they operate, and see if you can connect with them. Say, hey, do you mind going for a coffee? And then say, look, I'm looking, this is what I'm thinking about, and what would you do? Or can you tell me what you did in your career when? And if out of that cafecito comes out a nice relationship, great. But mentors happen organically, and it happens over time. And don't get too hung up on having people that are your peers be your cheerleaders, because that's really where a lot of your support comes from. And so don't think that those are not worthy.
Awesome. I think that's great advice. You can definitely find a mentor, an advocate. You can find inspiration anywhere, right? And so it doesn't matter at what level. Like you said, if you have that tia that just encourages you to do everything and anything, whereas you have mom and perhaps that says, no, don't do that, right? Like, that right there shows a difference. So thanks for touching that. I really wanted to get that, because I think that's a great question that was asked by Gabriela. Thank you so much. I kind of want to do a little bit of a shift now. I like you. We're still talking about Altria and what you got going on there. What I'd like to know, and for you to share, what does the ID and E mean to you? The inclusion and diversity and equity. What does that all mean to you in your role, and why is it important?
Well, diversity, inclusion, and equity, those three words have been a part of my life, ever since the beginning of time, right? And it really speaks as to who I am and what I believe in. And so when I came to Altria and I understood that the company is very committed to ID&E, I really took it to heart, and I read about it, and I tried to understand the history. And so I understood that this is nothing new. It's not something that the company's just, this is very trendy, I'm gonna work on ID&E. No, this is it's part of the fabric of the company, and it was called something different before, and it's been called millions of different names, and what we're calling it now is that inclusion, diversity, and equity. And it really is permeated throughout every single passageway in the culture of Altria. So I see it in my own department. We understand that diversity and inclusion is very important, specifically and especially in politics. We want to make sure that, bills and regulations and changes in the law don't affect the company. And we need to have friends of all different types, of all different stripes. And so we need to have people within Altria that reflect the diversity of the people in Congress, and the people in Congress should be diverse enough to reflect the people that they represent in their districts. And so it is thinking smartly and strategically about what kind of experience is this person as a Latina, or as an LGBT person, or as a Black man, or as an Asian older woman bringing to my equation, to my enterprise, whether it's communications, whether it's, regulatory affairs, whether it's government affairs. How is it that this person's unique perspective is going to help us win, whatever winning is, whether it's helping pass a bill, whether it's developing a new product or whatever? How is it that having a diverse pool of people is going to get us to the next level? And so for me, it's very clear that Altria has always sought that diversity, because in Altria we understand that diversity in opinion is what is going to make us different, is what's going to give us the edge so that we can win and get to the next level. So it's been great because it's part of who I am, it's part of what I bring to the table, and Altria gets it.
That's great. That's great. Keeping this kind of like theme going here. As far as the advocacy and just growing and whatnot, what, as a lobbyist for Altria, do you build advocates outside of the company? Do you work with third parties?
Yes. So we have a whole arm at Altria. It's called the Corporate Citizenship Department, Corporate Citizenship, and they do that. They do corporate citizenship, and they do an amazing job. What I do is I develop advocates so that they can create an echo chamber for what I'm saying. So it is fair and good that I go up there to the Hill and I talk to different offices and I tell them about Altria and I tell them about our strategies around tobacco harm reduction, and I tell them about the different strategies that we have to get to success, etc. But that only gets us so far. We need to be able to be smart and have other people saying the same things, but in different voices. And those is what I call validators, right? Those are third-party organizations or a third party, a third person, a validator that can actually lend their voice from an authentic place and say, as a matter of fact, tobacco harm reduction is really important, and let me tell you why. And then they can go through it and they can talk about the science, etc. But it's not us. It's not us. It's not us being a mouthpiece and saying, well, we are at Altria. We believe that tobacco harm reduction is really important. Well, of course we're going to say that, right? This is, our bread and butter. We're trying to make money, etc. Right? But when you have a validator, when you have a third party group that is saying the same thing, is conveying the same message, maybe in different words, but the same message, it makes a huge difference. And so I am actually particularly good at connecting with third-party groups. Maybe it's because I came from one. And I remember when I first arrived to Altria, there was this bill. It was February of 2020. And it was a very big bill. The bill was about banning flavor in tobacco. So tobacco flavors were being banned, including menthol. And what I understood is, oh my God, if they ban flavors in tobacco products, what's going to happen? It's not like people are going to stop smoking or are going to quit because they're going to be banned. There's going to be an illicit market, and the illicit market is going to feed the criminal justice system. And that system is one that I know very well, is one that I've written about, is one that I worked on when I was at Unidos US. And so I connected those dots, and I got my old Rolodex, literally, like those cards with you guys probably don't understand what that is, but like you used to clip cards on this little rolly thing and you used to flip it like this.
Yep.
And I grabbed the Rolodex and I dusted it off and I picked up the phone and I called my old friends from 20 years ago, from when I was in La Raza. And I said, listen, this is what's happening. I think there is a connection here. And I think that if there is an illicit market, more brown and black people are going to be targeted and are going to be in contact with the criminal justice system, and they're going to end up, incarcerated or dead, like we saw with George Floyd, like we saw with Eric Gardner, and with so many. And so I was able to activate, to energize, to wake up those those relationships that I had with third-party groups, including the ACLU, and I got them to work on an issue that they cared about from this angle, from the criminal justice angle. We cared about it for this other reason, but ultimately the angles intersect. And that was beautiful, because all of a sudden there were letters going up to the Hill. There were people in the criminal justice and civil rights community talking about this bill, opposing this bill, and were on our side. They were our unlikely, bedfellows. And so that made people take a quick look, think critically and think, wait, hold on. This is not a black and white issue. It's not all or nothing. There's different shades of gray here. And it made some legislators pause and think, holy mac, are we really going to ban, flavored tobacco products because we really care about people's health? But then what's going to happen when we're going to ignite yet another wave of people of color being harassed by law enforcement because they are smoking menthol cigarettes? And who's going to deter these people from smoking menthol cigarettes? Is it going to be the police? Are there going to be like sniff dogs trying to figure out who's smoking a menthol cigarette and who's not? So there was an echo chamber, and that is what made it successful. So yes, I do work with third-party groups. I align with them, and I meet them where they are. I meet them. I don't ask them to do anything that they are not already doing, but I ask them to think about it in a certain way. And I push ourselves at Altria to think about it in a certain way as well, so that we can meet halfway.
I really like how, the work that you're doing is using critical thinking, and you're teaching, or you're sharing how to advocate for a particular thing with these organizations. And so it's really great to see that connection. How, as my last question before we go into like more of the audience questions, what can you share as far as advice on self-advocacy?
That's a great question. And I can tell you that you have to be your best advocate, your best self-advocate. If you are not your own advocate, then how do you expect anyone to be your advocate? You have to advocate for yourself first and foremost. And then you can ask people to advocate for yourself. I'll give you an example. As a Latina and as a woman, culturally speaking, we're taught to work hard, be humble, put your head down, and your work is going to show. Your work is going to speak louder than words, right? That's what I was told all my life. And what happened to me a few times is that there were some opportunities to advance, and I would want those opportunities. And I would think that I was ready for those opportunities. And they didn't come to me. Nobody was talking to me about them. They were thinking about other people, other women, other men, some younger, some older, but they were not thinking about me. And I'm like, this is so annoying. And I was so hurt because I worked so hard, and I was humble, and I was not full of myself. And I was hoping that my work was going to speak louder than any word. And then somebody along the line said to me, when I said to this guy, I said, well, why didn't you consider me? And he said, and he wasn't being a jerk. He really meant it. He said, oh, I had no idea that you were interested. I had no idea. Had I known, maybe I would have considered you, but you never told me. So from that on, I said to myself, I would be damned if I don't put myself out there, if I don't throw my hat in the ring, and if I don't tell them that I aspire to have that job, that I aspire to have that promotion, that I aspire to go in that direction. Because que no digan that, oh, you never told me. I'd rather them know and say, well, you know what? You didn't have this qualification, or it wasn't your turn, or, this person was already being groomed, or whatever it was. But let it never be because, oh, you never showed interest. You never told me. You never advocated for yourself. So that is a life lesson that I've taken to heart. I still do it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I want a position and I don't get it, but at least I can sleep well at night knowing that I tried.
Absolutely.
No es a la suerte, like I tried. I put myself out there. I looked at the position and I threw myself in the ring and I told them that I was ready to do it. And people can decide, but at least I did my part in throwing my name out there. So you have to be your best advocate. You have to.
I think you're making a great point of what a mistake in not advocating. And as I was thinking about questions, that was one thing that I wanted to ask you is like, what are things that we do that hold us back from advocating for ourselves? And I think that's right on. Is if you don't speak up, no one's going to hear. If you don't let your boss know that you have aspirations to have that role, or even a promotion, if you don't voice it, how are they going to know it? They have tons of things going on in their world. Yes, they care about you, but when it comes to these little things like that move you up and move you forward and progress you, if you don't say it, if you don't show interest, if you don't, you create a great presentation, but no one sees it, what's the point of it? Is it even really truly created? So I think this is great advice, great point that you're making. And I think it's valuable for everyone, no matter where they are in their careers, and even if they're in school too, right? Like, you have to definitely be known, make yourself visible. Otherwise, you get that comment of, I didn't know you were interested. I didn't think you wanted it.
People may be thinking of you in a different light, right? People may be thinking, oh, for Angela, I want this for her, or I see her here. But what if that's not the way that you're seeing yourself? Yeah. So you just need to be able to share with people your dreams and desires, and maybe they will come true, so
Angela, we're getting close to the end of this time here, and we had said it just goes, right? Like we just start talking and it goes and goes. But there are a few questions that we did have come through. I know Jose had asked a question earlier, and that was, what is the fastest way to grow in an organization? Do you have any a quick little advice, thought, input on that for Jose?
Jose, I think that you should really understand what the different roles are. You should sit down with people in the different departments and understand how work develops. And then if you can, try to work with different people on different projects. That way, you'll be able to be considered as maybe a person that can move in that direction or in this direction. You have to go the extra mile and put yourself out there and show that you're interested in that position.
Great. Hopefully that's provides a little bit of food for thought there for Jose. We have another question, Joanna, and I think this is a great question here. What do you do when your English is not that perfect?
You try to watch a lot of TV, and you try to practice as much as you can. And now with iPhones and technology, you can tape yourself and you can hear how you sound. And you don't have to sound super, super gringa, super American or whatever. I have an accent and I'm very proud of it. And it's who I am. I also try not to let people deter me from or make fun or light of how I sound, because it's ultimately who I am. So, but don't be discouraged. Try to master it. There are many ways for free that you can do it. Listen to audiobooks, use Duolingo, tape yourself, go on a coffee circuit with other people that you're teaching them how to speak Spanish. They can teach you how to speak English. Just practice.
Practice. I was going to say that and you said it. I think practice is key. I think that's key in anything that you do, that you want to show that you are able to do, right? Like, if you want to get that job, you're going to practice your responses. You have an idea of what the interview questions might be, so you're going to practice your stories. Same thing with this. You're going to look. If whatever industry it is, let's say you're in cybersecurity. I see someone over here talking about cybersecurity. If you're in cybersecurity, look for the cybersecurity books. Read those books. Look at the lingo. Practice those words, those business terms, right? And I agree, Angela. Who cares about the accent? I think accents are so awesome. They really make you, they really show who you are. It doesn't matter. I find it so interesting. But bottom line is, as long as you can communicate your business thought or whatever it is that you're communicating, that's the most important thing. What accent you have doesn't matter. That just adds flavor to it. Don't like you said, don't turn yourself into a gringa. You don't have to get rid of it. So I think that's a great question, Joanna and Angela. That's awesome. I don't know if we have any more questions, but what I'm really thankful for.
Oh no. Did you lose me? Are we here? Hello? I think I'm going to put my glasses on so that I can figure out what people are typing. Well, thank you so much, Alpha Cisco, for having us, for having me, and for listening to my story, and for learning a little bit more about Altria. I really enjoyed our conversation. Oh, there you are, Cisco. I was just saying thank you. I spent, a few minutes talking to you all, and it was worth my while. I hope you found it interesting and informative. I want to thank our talent acquisition team again, and the Alpha team. Big shout out to Cisco in Chicago, and also Carlos, who's doing all the technological magic. So thank you all, and you all can always reach out to me if you have any questions. Happy to be a resource. Bye-bye.
Angela, thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but FYI, for those on the call, Altria is having an office hours this Thursday. I believe we're going to put that in the chat, so please make sure you check that out for the details. And yeah, thank you all for joining. Angela, again, thank you so much for sharing all your experience and knowledge and just giving back to the community. That's something that's ultimately what we're doing here, is we're giving back to our community, and hopefully inspiring others, and hopefully we've made an impact to at least one person. and if that's it, then so be it. I'm happy with that. Again, thank you all very much to the Alpha team that's behind the scenes here, to the folks at Altria. Thank you so much. And to all our wonderful Alpha guests, members, have a great evening, and don't forget to advocate for yourself.
That's right.
Have a good night. Take care.
Bye-bye.